U.S. President Joe Biden has inaugurated a new national monument to protect land around the Grand Canyon from any developers, including uranium mining. A dozen indigenous tribes called for the protection of around 4,000 square kilometers in the park. The president used the Antiquities Act to designate the area ancestral footprints of the Grand Canyon National Monument, a move disparaged by some officials and mining interest, but long sought by tribes that trace their origin to the lands. He said the move was not only good for the environment, but also for the soul of the nation.
America's natural wonders are our nation's heart and soul. That's not hyperbole, that's a fact. They unite us, they inspire us. A birthright we pass down from generation to generation. And that's why from day one, I've taken historic steps to conserve our natural treasures for all ages. My first week as president, I signed an executive order establishing our country's most ambitious conservation goal ever. I made a commitment that we will protect 30% of all our nation's lands and waters, conserve all 30% of all our nation's lands and waters by 2030. And we're on our way. And we're delivering. Just my first year in office, we've done more, protected more lands than anyone since the 1960s, John Kennedy's era. And so today I'm proud to use my authority under the Antiquities Act to protect almost 1 million acres of public land around Grand Canyon National Park as a new national monument. To help right the wrongs of the past and conserve this land of ancestral footprints for all future generations. By creating this monument, we're setting aside new spaces for families to hike, bike, hunt, fish, and camp. Growing the tourism economy that already accounts for 11% of all Arizona jobs. Folks, preserving these lands is good not only for Arizona, but for the planet. It's good for the economy. It's good for the soul of the nation.
Well, the U.S. state of Ohio has rejected a Republican motion to make it harder to change the state's constitution, a move seen as a defeat for anti-abortion groups. Republicans who control Ohio's legislature and governor's office wanted to raise the threshold for constitutional amendments from a simple majority to 60%. Supporters say it was to protect the Constitution from outside financial interest. Still, opponents argued it would have made it more difficult to pass a referendum to enshrine abortion rights in the state's constitution. Let's bring in Arise U.S. correspondent Eric Ham, who joins me live from Washington and has been covering this for months now. Eric, good to see you, and thanks as always. Let's start in Ohio. What exactly were people voting for, and what's the significance of the result?
Yes, this was a referendum that would actually make it more difficult for referendums to pass. And many believe that this was a referendum that was put forward by Republicans in an effort to try to make it difficult to remove some of those more restrictive voting laws that have been in the state recently. And this referendum was now a referendum that would now mean that you would need a supermajority to pass any referendum that was now placed on the ballot. So now, prior to this referendum, all referendums only needed a simple majority in order to pass a referendum. It would have required a supermajority, at least 60% of support, as opposed to simply 51%, making the threshold much higher. And now, because this referendum passed, it ensures that the next referendum, which is going to be on the ballot 24, would be a referendum to remove the latest abortion restriction law that was enacted into law in the state of Ohio. And so now what we're seeing is, once again, the vestiges of the Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade, which was and for nearly half a century, allowing a woman a right to choose. That issue is still playing massive dividends, particularly for Republicans across states, even in states that are being governed and run by Republican politicians. And so what this now means is that, and even though the abortion issue was front and center in 2021, it is expected to continue to place very heavily heading into 2024, where we will see those elections, of course, come down to perhaps the margins in many of these states.
So, Eric, how big an issue will abortion be in the coming elections?
It's expected to still be a very tense and energetic issue, particularly for a lot of millennial and Generation Z voters. If we go back to the midterm elections of 2022, while Republicans were expected to do very well, one of the reasons it's said that they did not is, of course, because of the issue of abortion. And that is still expected to play very heavily. In fact, some people believe that the issue could be a winner for Democrats 70-30, meaning any state or area where you have it's on the ballot, expect that issue to win 70 points to 30 over the issue, over trying to restrict the issue. So it's seen as a winner for Democrats. And if it in fact is going to be a major issue in 2024, expect Democrats to do very well.
Now, tell us more about the move by President Joe Biden to inaugurate a new national monument to protect land around the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, this is an area where what the president has done is he's actually basically protected this land. And this is land that indigenous people of the United States, Americans, have deemed to be a sacred land. And so what we are seeing here is the president has now designated more than 1 million acres around the Grand Canyon to be land that is now protected, which means there can be no mining. You have to be very strict rules in terms of fishing, mining, and also what it does is it protects the land and also makes it very difficult for development. That is actually one of the reasons why the president actually made the move to do this issue, to ensure that most specifically mining and development. And this is seen as a massive major win, particularly for Native Americans who have been pushing for this issue for quite some time.
I'll quickly here before you go. We know Arizona is now regarded as a swing state. What impact could this have politically?
Yeah, this was seen, while this is certainly seen as a burnish Joe Biden's credentials, particularly when it comes to environmental issues, this is also seen as a surefire way both to protect the interests of the people of Arizona, but also to protect Joe Biden's, Joe Biden's in that state where he again is looking to make Arizona a state that he is going to play for. Remember, he only won that state by just 1 percentage point, and this is seen as a very popular move by the president to designate this land as protected, and it's going to be an issue that many agree with and believe that the president made the right decision. So it's going to be a boon for him politically heading into what is expected to be a very tough race.
Eric Ham, many thanks.